Hello, you are on the channel Disney Theories. Here we develop various mysterious theories and discuss alternative versions of Disney cartoons. Today I will answer why Copa was not added to the cartoon The Lion King 2. It may be the most frequent among all fans of the Lion King universe. For those who do not understand what it is about, do not worry. Now you and I will explain everything. As you remember, in the cartoon Lion King 2, we were introduced to Kiara, the daughter of Simba and Nala. The cartoon's creators gave us the impression that Kiara is the only child in the family. However, the book The Lion King, 6 New Adventures was written only before the cartoon's release. Simba and Nala have 3 children: Kopa, the eldest son, Kiara, the middle daughter, and Kian, the youngest. By the way, I have already released a video about Kian. I will leave you a link in the description. Be sure to look. I also answered why the youngest son was cut out of the story. And we'll return to the eldest and see why they left Kopa out of the story. And the first thing to note is the tight schedule and small budget. Lion King 2 was initially created as a sequel for home viewing, not for the theater. Because of this, the time and money to make the second installment was much less than the first. Adding Kopa would have required the development of his relationship with his sister's father, the Outcasts, and Kovu. The Outcasts are the lionesses who served Scar and were banished from the Pride Lands by Simba. Kovu is the son of Scar and Zira, the one loved by Kiara and who later became the leader of the Pride Lands. So if the creators had done that, they would have increased the movie's running time. And as you can imagine, they couldn't make a 3-hour sequel. The creators made the economic decision to cut out all the secondary plots and leave only Kiara to go deeper into her story. However, it was possible to follow the canon and leave Kopu as the central character in the cartoon. You can't. I found 5 reasons why the cartoon is better without Kopu. The first concerns gender balance. If you recall all the Disney cartoons, the stories of the female characters quite often revolve around love. Ariel, Jasmine, Rapunzel is each of them a princess, but each of them is far from power. Thanks such cartoons, it creates the impression that all princesses are in love and frivolous. The cartoon. The Lion King breaks this stereotype because Kiara is a leader and peacemaker. Even though she falls in love with Kovu, her family does not lose its importance. This is well shown when Kiara asks Kovu to return home, and he in turn offers her to run away. We see that she doesn't even have a moment's hesitation. She confidently turns him down. Ciara would just run off with her lover if this were a typical story, but she realizes she's being counted on as the future of Pride Lands. She can't let her family down like this. If she had a brother, the responsibility would be shared. So Ciara might entertain the idea of running away. However, Ciara's loneliness makes her choices bolder. She has no safety net in the form of a brother to take her place. Even if Copa had been alone in the story, we wouldn't have watched the cartoon with such engagement. It would be like the first part. The audience would automatically expect Copa to be king. Remember Simba's story? Even when he escaped, did you really think that was the end of it? No. We all knew in our gut that he had to return and be king. When the main character is a young lioness, that certainty is gone, leaving intrigue in the story. What path will she take? This leads to the second reason why Copa was cut out of the story. Suppose you parse the basic premise of the cartoon. In that case, it is a story about how the new generation can break the vicious cycle of revenge. Simba, who survived Scar's betrayal and his father's death, sees every outcast as a threat. He isolates them outside the Pride Lands, believing that evil is transmitted by blood, and his overprotection of Ciara is not just a parental fear, but a projection of his own trauma. He believes that the world is divided into good and evil, and that the former will want to take revenge on him and get rid of his daughter. But Ciara, unlike her father, does not judge others by their origins. Her love for Kovu is a rebellion against inherited stereotypes. She refuses to see him as an enemy because he's the son of Zira and Scar. Through their relationship, the cartoon says, you don't have to pay for the sins of your ancestors. You can choose a different path. If Copa were in the story, the reconciliation with the outcasts would risk becoming a banal son versus son confrontation. According to the book, Copa is a rebellious lion cub who always has adventures. He has a high opinion of himself as he realizes he is the Pride Land's future king. As such, he loves spending time with his father and tries to be like him in every way possible. This makes him quite proud. Even when afraid, he does not back down and shows courage. With such a great desire to be a worthy heir to the throne, Copa would hardly go against his father. Instead, he would have accepted his opinion as correct and fought against Kovu. As a female character, Kiara brought softness and empathy to the story. Her relationship with Kovu became a bridge between worlds rather than a battle. This brings us to the third reason, unprocessed internal trauma. As I said earlier in Lion King 2, Simba is hyperactive over his daughter. He fears that the mistakes of the past will be repeated and therefore restricts her freedom. If Ciara had a brother, the conflict would be lost, and the story would be unfinished. Kopa would have just followed his father and his fears. Who knows how many more generations the feud would have lasted. It was important for the creators to emphasize that the cycle of hate and fear was replaced by a cycle of love and peace. In the first part, Simba loses his father but defeats Scar, thus completing the cycle of revenge. There was no point in continuing it, so the second part needed characters to symbolize the cycle of life. And no one was as well suited as Ciara and Kovu. Their union symbolized hope. And the phrase at the end of "We are one pride" emphasizes the main point of the cartoon. The fourth reason is closely related to how they came to this unity. In the first part, strength and power were associated with physical strength. First, Scar, through cunning and strength, got rid of Mufasa, and then Simba defeated Scar and regained his rightful throne. In the second part, strength is shown in vulnerability. Ciara does not win battles. Her weapon is her empathy, listening ability, and willingness to take risks. The first part's approach creates a cycle of violence. Scar kills Mufasa, Simba overthrows Scar, and Zira avenges Simba. The second part's approach is a search for common ground. For example, in the scene by the river where Ciara and Kovu fish together, it is not competition but cooperation. If Copa had replaced Ciara, the association of strength equals physical superiority would likely continue. Then, there would be the question of who would defeat Copa or Kova and who would lead the Pride Lands. Given that both would be fueled by the vengeance of their parents, both would lose. This path was partially shown to us through Zira. Her hatred turned out to be a prison that destroyed her. If such an ending awaited both Copa and Kovu, it would be too sad for a children's cartoon. Ciara became a symbol of kindness. Her decision to return to the outcasts and offer them peace is an act of courage that changes the game's rules. The Lion King 2 shows that strength is not about breaking the enemy but not seeing the enemy as an enemy. Ciara is not afraid to show weakness, so her influence is more profound than any warrior. As Rafiki said, sometimes what you see depends on how you look. The power of vulnerability is the new look. The fifth reason is avoiding fan expectations. The introduction of Copa could have been a minefield for the sequel's makers. For fans of the books, he is an integral part of the story, but for movie audiences who have only seen the first cartoon, he is non-existent. If Copa appeared in the second installment, the audience would be divided into two camps. Those who have read the books would demand explanations for why Copa is not the heir. And those who haven't read the books would wonder where the lion came from and why it wasn't mentioned before. This would ruin the immersion in the story. Instead of developing key themes, the creators must spend time patching plot holes. Moreover, Copa in the book has a tragic fate. He either dies or disappears. For a family cartoon, this uncertainty is too dark a backdrop. When it aims to tell a story of hope and healing, the cartoon could become a story of guilt and loss. The Copa would drag the narrative back to the past instead of forward to the future. So it was much easier for the creators to start from scratch in the form of Ciara. She has no comic book baggage or fan theories. Her story starts from scratch. This allows you to mold her character without considering other people's interpretations. Moreover, even the hint of Copa's existence would raise questions. Ciara is the reincarnation of Copa. Copa may be the secret leader of the outcasts, and suddenly he will appear in the third part. If any theories interest you, write in the comments and I will explain them further. The creators wanted to avoid answers, so they completely dissociated themselves from the book canon. They made it clear that there is only one heir lion cub in the movie version. As a bonus, I'd like to reveal one symbolic scene that emphasizes why Copa shouldn't have been in the story. Remember when Zira set the step on fire? That was an act of self-destructive hatred. Zira was willing to destroy everything, including her supporters, to hurt Simba. When the step was on fire, Simba and Kovu teamed up to put out the flames. And it was not just a physical act, but a clear overcoming of prejudice. Simba, who had always seen the outcasts as enemies, trusted Kovu for the first time. Kovu was raised as an instrument of revenge, and he proved that he had chosen the side of peace. Instead of a battle for power, they saved their typical home together. Fire was the catalyst that made them forget about the feud. It also contrasted the first part. If Simba had defeated Scar earlier in battle and restored order through physical superiority, now he managed to do it through unity. Even the hyenas, eternal companions of chaos, extinguished the flames. The fire scene is a spectacular finale and a statement proclaiming that hatred is a dead end. And the only way to survive is to stop dividing the world into one's own and another's. Of course, it would be possible to play up the plot in every possible way and add Kopu at this point, but then this conflict would not be so clearly demonstrated. Kopu was not included in the plot, not because I disliked the character, but to preserve the story's integrity. Ciara became the perfect embodiment of the cartoon's message of strength, not in claws, but in the ability to understand the other. Her loneliness, femininity, and diplomacy are responses to past traumas that Simba could not overcome alone. Copa, for all his charm, would simply not fit into this picture. He remained in the books as a hint that The Lion King could have many sequels. If you want to hear an alternative version of the story from me, write about it in the comments, and I will shoot a separate video. Also, do not forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe. See you in the new videos.